positions that did not exist
Bismillah
within.
ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back to the program. It is the mid-morning show with me, Julie Allie. I will be with you throughout the month of Ramadan from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And thereafter, of course, there will be a few changes as far as our lineups are concerned. But for the month of Ramadan, you can join me right here from 11 to 1 o'clock every Monday and Tuesday mornings. First up on the program, neuroplasticity and the vital role Ramadan plays in this aspect. My first guest to talk us through this concept is Master NLP Life Coach Khalid Jassat. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam, Julie. I'm enchanted and delighted to be here, and I'm filled with a sense of gratitude, especially given this opportunity in the midst of our holy month of Ramadan. And I'm sending love to you, your team, and each and every individual that's signed in and tuned in. Thank you so much.
As am I, Alhamdulillah. What a pleasure to be talking with you again. It's been quite a break. In fact, at the beginning of in my intro, I don't know if you'd heard it, I indicated that all of the guests today, 4 guests, are all people whom I regard as friends. So thank you so very much for being here. The Mubarak month of Ramadan is upon us. I've talked in the past about this concept, and we've been told that, psychology tells us that to break a habit, one should stick with refraining from whatever the habit is. If you want to inculcate a new, healthier habit, whether it's physical, psychological, emotional, etc., you need to stick with it for 21 days. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so Ghafoor Rahim. He doesn't give us 21 days to reinvent ourselves. He gives us 30 days in the holy month of Ramadan. And I think that's where you come in with this concept of neuroplasticity. What exactly is neuroplasticity, and how does it tie in with my remarks or my statements?
Well, absolutely. And I'd like to say we missed you, Julie. Welcome back. And we're
Thank
not
you.
just friends, we're more than friends, we're family.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I wanna kick off my talk with a verse from the Holy Quran, chapter 2, verse 183, where Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyamu kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. And the Yusuf Ali translation says, O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed to you as it has been to those before you, so that you may learn self-restraint. And I think that is the beautiful part of everything we're going to discuss today. Now, let's talk about neuroplasticity. So, if you remember a few decades ago, there used to be a perception and what we called a flat earth society. And this perception made people believe that the earth was flat. So if they got too close to the edge, or if they wandered out of their boundaries, they would fall off and, I don't know, disappear into oblivion. And this was merely a perception. It wasn't a scientific proof or fact. And then there was a single shift in perception. And the single shift in perception suggested that the earth was not flat, but the earth was indeed round, and that we could travel anywhere and we would always be constant with the law of gravity, and we could never ever fall off the earth and disappear into oblivion. And if you could just imagine for a moment, just glimpse back and think about how this perception scaled human growth on a monumental level. I mean, the world is where we are today. We're sitting through this technology of advancement. We're sitting with different nations and different cultures, and we're broadcasting Salam Media throughout the world simply because of that shift in perception and people then responding to it and started discovering and exploring the potentials and the endlessness of human nature and the world as it is. Now, as a life coach, according to modern science and neuroscientists, post 1980, they stumbled across something even more remarkable. And that was that the mind, the human mind, is malleable and it's not hardwired, it's soft wired. In other words, neurons we fire become neurons we wire. And that the concept of old habit die hard and you can't teach your old dog new tricks is total hogwash, because we can fire and wire new neurons right now, right here, in this moment. We don't even have to go to 21 days. We can actually just reinvent and forge new synapses in our neurology right now. As we're listening and learning and processing, we are actually reinventing ourselves. But this is where my challenge comes in to modern science and neuroscience and the concept of neuroplasticity post 1980. So prior to that, we lived like the Flat Earth Society, and we lived with a concept called neurorigidity. That means that we were stuck in our habits, stuck in our mindset, and the mind was hardwired, or the brain was hardwired. Now, post 1980s neuroscientists and quantum physics has suggested the exact contrast opposite of that. But I want to take modern science and the neuroscientists back to almost 1442 years ago. And it was through the holy month of Ramadan that we began to understand our power of neuroplasticity. So I remember last year in COVID, for the last few years, I've been blessed not to either to have gone for Umrah or to be in Dubai, because I do a lot of coaching out in Dubai. And I've spent many of my Ramadans in the last few years in Dubai. And, Dubai is similar to turning night into day and day into night. And Ramadan is extremely differently on a different frequency, both in Saudi and in Dubai. So I really enjoyed the atmosphere and the energy and the cohesion and the spiritual kind of cohesion of people at that time. But last year with COVID, we couldn't travel. So a few of my friends and I decided what we're gonna do is we're gonna conceptualize a Dubai Ramadan right here in South Africa. Fortunately, I kind of own my time for my coaching, for my craft. So I decided that I'm going to make appointments for a little later in the afternoon after Dhuhr. And I'm going to kind of be up till later at night and then sleep until Dhuhr time. And I remember the first night we all got together, a few friends, and we had supper together, and we then got KFC for suhoor, and then prayed our fijr, and then went to sleep. And this was the first of Ramadan. And through that, I woke up and I have this routine, this ritual, right? I run downstairs and I have a hot water with lemon to wash down all the KFC. And that's my ritual every morning for 11 months of the year. And without thinking, being a bit disoriented with the timing, I ran downstairs at about 10:30, put the kettle on, got the lemon cut, and then realized, oops, I'm fasting. And with a smile, just put everything back and went back upstairs and lay down for a bit. But in that moment, I got a glimpse of the power of neuroplasticity, which was actually suggested through the holy month of Ramadan. So you mentioned that, we have 30 days to be able to rewire ourselves. But guess what? After 30 days, we again rewire ourselves and get back to our normal
Absolutely.
routine. And
Absolutely.
and it dawned on me that within a single moment of awareness, I was able to rewire. I didn't need to fast for 21 days to know that I need to follow a discipline. Just when the thought entered my mind, I immediately rewired, took on the discipline, and refrained from what I'm supposed to do and not do.
Okay, Khalid, let me ask you this question. It is said that, and I want you still to respond to the question of what is neuroplasticity? What are we talking about? Are we talking brain chemicals? Are we talking neurons? Are we talking energy? What are we talking about here? But let me ask you this question. I understand that through intermittent fasting, here we're talking Ramadan, continuous for 30 days, but scientists are saying through intermittent fasting, you can control your thoughts, you can change habits, poor, bad, good, whatever it is. You can change your thinking, you can change your path. Uh, so let's look at that link. And then also let's look at the issue around, we know that at probably age 25, that's when your brain stops developing. It's reached its full potential of development, or so I understand. What happens to older people? Okay, what happens to older people? And in this century, or in this 21st century, we seem to be plagued more and more by different types of dementias. Is there hope for that group of people? So I've thrown a whole host of questions at you.
Yeah, like I'm thinking, let me kind of separate them. So number one, neuroplasticity is highly linked to quantum physics, which simply says that, in my old days, my late dad, if I wanted something and I promised him I would deliver on something, whether it was my school result or sports result or washing the car, he had a common saying that said, "I'll believe it when I see it." That was
Wow.
his common line. Today, I wish my dad was alive so he could understand that today we live with neuroplasticity, which simply suggests if I believe it, I'll see it. So we are co creators. We can create our reality, we can create our outcomes to a large extent. So again, coming down to this, I want to simplify neuroplasticity. It's a big term, but simply it means that we are soft wired. And when it comes to 25, these are all coming from neurorigidity, all of these beliefs and values, and they've all been kind of negated now. I don't want to negate yours and whoever's listening in, but the truth is, and it doesn't really age. Neuroplasticity can't age because once we say we age, then we're going back to neurorigidity. We're going with old habits. But when we understand the nature of the brain, the nature of human thought, the nature of human emotion, and the nature of human response, we can now understand that through this nature that we all, I mean, I want to go back to the term where Allah says in Surah 13 verse 11, verily I will not change a condition of a person until they do not decide to change that which is within
Absolutely.
themselves. And I want to
Absolutely.
explain on that to your second question, in that there is no other mastery except mastery of oneself. You see, we haven't figured out how this interview system works. It's been around for decades. What we figured out was the best way that you, Julie, my host, and me as a co host could maximize and optimize this interview to pass a message along, to move people, to impact people, to influence people. So, actually, what did we figure out? We figure out our own self mastery. So, Ramadan is not conceived and observed by a new moon. It is not conceived by a Taraweeh prayer. It is not conceived by an announcement or the refraining from food or drink or whatever we should refrain from. Ramadan is conceived by our mindset of understanding what the discipline of Ramadan is. Also, it also responds to self discipline, and that is simply knowing you can, but deciding you won't. And that is all power of the mind. It is not the power of the environment. So I actually gave it a term. Traditionally, Ramadan has been observed through a social spiritual awakening or a psycho spiritual awakening or even a mental or even an emotional spiritual awakening. But I've understood today with deeper science and deeper neurology and deeper neuroscience that for me, Ramadan and our life per se is a neuro spiritual awakening. It is the way we rearrange our neurons, our cells, our atoms in our body deep within. And the control center of our experience is simply our neurology and how we arrange ourselves. And then it is thought, and then it is emotion, and then it is feeling and response or external environments. But the most important thing of any kind of observation or transformation or awakening or awareness or even shift is first a neuro-spiritual awareness. It is rearranging our neurons, and we are the control center. Our mind is the control center of that.
Okay.
Everything else is peripheral.
All right. We're going to go for an ad break. And when we come back, you still need to respond about the dementias. And then I want to see or understand how the power of positive thinking is linked to this concept that we're talking about today. And what about those, you have people who make terribly sad, sick, negative movies in their minds all the time. They are so negative that I guess they put out that negative energy, and whatever they're thinking about is actually what visits them. But let's look at all of those concepts right after the ad break. I'm talking to Khalid Jassat. He's a master NLP coach. We're talking about the science of neuroplasticity. And of course, the Mubarak month of Ramadan is upon us. How can we use this concept to better energize ourselves and take mastery, take control of our thoughts, our actions, and our lives as a whole?
Our efforts continue all through the blessed month of Ramadan. So our aim is to literally save a few lives, whichever little way. Thanks to your support, we have provided thousands of people with staple and nutritious food pack supplies, access to fresh and clean water, and education supplies, and so much more. I think it's a lot about the community and our well-wishers. Any appeal utilizes your FITRA donations to help make a difference to the lives.
Are you going to check with Neil Butko if he's going to do a StreamYard?
So I did call him. I did send him the link. So
You're not sure?
yeah. So I did call him. So I'll maybe ask Yad maybe see if he can test with him.
Yeah, because I told you he's blind, so it's a bit of a challenge for him if he doesn't have anyone to support him setting it up.
No, I did speak to him this
Okay,
morning.
brilliant. So going well. Thank you, girl.
I was like, you took the air break, and I'm like, I heard air break. I'm like, oh wow.
I thought I'd overrun. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yes, I have overrun. 11:15 was meant to have been.
I think it's
Doesn't matter. It's okay. We've taken the ad break.
There was so much time.
Okay.
From traditional dishes, Osman's Taj Mahal handmade synonymous with quality spices and condiments. Taj Mahal rice, beans, and lentils. Try our range of chili white mixes, rose and ilachi syrup, our quick and easy biryani pack, and our traditional range of spice blends. Osman's Taj Mahal. There is no substitute for quality.
From the townships of South Africa, the refugee camps in Syria, or orphanages in Yemen, the eyes of the needy speak volumes with just one glare. We know what it's like to be at ground zero, with food essentials, clothing and blankets, fresh water portal trucks, and even on-site navigators. We use every cent to better their tomorrow. Become part of our journey to bring relief to all. Go to www.ashrafulaid.org or call us on 011-809-8181. Ashraful Aid, under the auspices of Maulana Suhaib Wali.
Juicy Medicine Depot, retail pharmacy and emergency medical depot. Conveniently situated in the Juicy Medical Center, corner Berger and Russell Street, Pietermaritzburg. We provide safe, affordable and convenient medical facilities. Open till 10 p.m. every day of the year. We have a full-house clinic that operates from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., which is run by a qualified sister. The clinic offers immunization, vaccination, wellness, general consultation, and more. Call Juicy Medicine Depot on 033 3421 Juicy Medicine Depot, your pharmacy of choice. And stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. I am talking with Khalid Jassat. He is a master NLP life coach. We're talking neuroplasticity this morning and how we can rewire our brains, how we can have a better quality of life, inshallah, by just embracing this concept. Khalid, assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to you. Are you there, Khalid?
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much. Great to be back.
Okay. All right. You need to respond to my two questions
Yes,
before the
okay,
ad break.
perfect.
So over to you.
Okay, so the first thing you mentioned about people with a negative narrative, just to let you know, in our coaching world, we refer to them as clients. Okay.
Okay. All right.
If we understand the nature of human experience, Julie, it begins with thought, and then there's the mind, and then there's what we call conscious awareness. Now, we do not give conscious awareness through the mind, through all thought. You know, we go through around 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and some of them are quite hectic and quite crazy. I mean, let me ask you this. How many times in your life did you feel like you want to kill someone? Your own
Oh,
kids, your own spouse, the taxi guys
way
on the
too many
road.
times.
But
Way
we
too
didn't
many
kill them,
times.
right? That's why we're here. We didn't kill them, alhamdulillah. And what this means is you simply did not give the thought recognition or conscious awareness. Now, the only difference between us and someone on death row for killing someone is that they gave the thought recognition and awareness.
Does that
So,
suggest, Khalid, does that then suggest that perhaps that person has a mental health issue? To have
well,
taken
to a
it that
large
far?
extent, the boundary of ethics and morals have been blurred and overridden. And I think a lot of times, including me as a coach, Julie, and you, with all our wisdom and understanding and knowledge, we often override it. Thank God it's not as crucially dangerous as murdering someone. But we all sometimes park over a yellow line or speak on our cell phones while driving and try to hide it from the policeman on the corner. Oh, and for me, it's about understanding the nature of creative experience. And our nature of experience is creative. And what I'm suggesting from this is that no matter how automated it seems, no matter how laborious it seems, you are the co creator and you do have dominion over your decision making and your life experiences. And because you have dominion and it's all driven through awareness, we can now understand that certain types of behaviors can be overridden not by punitive measures, not by punishment, not by losses, not by fears, but by deeper understanding and more awareness. And for me, neuroplasticity comes into play when we become aware that we are not the sum total of everything that's happened to us or everything that we are or we are not. When we can understand that and grasp that, and poets like Rumi and the Holy Quran has spoken about this at numerous junctions, just to understand that we have the ability to co-create to a large extent. And if we are living with the familiar past, if we are living with what we're familiar with and running this auto-suggest, autopilot program, and we don't become aware that we can change it, then the narrative is going to run our life, run our story. I tell
Okay,
people,
so the short answer then, Khalid, in terms of the power of positive thinking, number one, and also issues around the all the different dementias we're seeing. What's going on there? And is that reversible through neuroplasticity? Can it become a reality? Can we overcome? And we also hear a lot of, I hear this amongst my friends and family a lot, that they say they walk into a room and they've forgotten why they've walked in, or they're becoming more and more forgetful. I'm talking about 50 years plus or 55 onwards. People are becoming aware of their forgetfulness. Is that an indication that they may, at some point in their lives, suffer from some form of dementia? Is there anything that can be done at this point in time to not even reach that first step via neuroplasticity?
Julie, I do not want to reduce it to the simpleness of what I'm going to suggest to people who are having family members or themselves suffering this kind of dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever it may be. But in understanding neuroscience and being at the forefront of learning neuro-linguistic programming and how we communicate and how we create experiences, what I've learned in my tenure as a life coach is quite simply that how the subconscious mind works, which runs almost 96% of your life, of your behavioral patterns, of your actions, it almost lives on what we call a piling system, kind of like that, okay? So if you were walking into a room to pick up your reading glasses, but whilst you were walking in there, you started piling a whole lot of other information on top of the information. Then when you get to the room, there's so much of layers of piles on top of that initial decision to go find your reading glasses that you would simply feel like, I've forgotten that I've come here for my reading glasses. What's more important is to notice where your awareness is then, because your awareness is what am I going to make for iftar, and I hope the samosas are not burning in the oil, So it's not really that we forget. It's really that we keep on overlayering ourselves. And the moment we overlay ourselves, the subconscious mind's got to go through the pile of layers to be able to execute the neuron that reminds you of why you got here in the first place. So it's actually unlearning. It's actually unpacking. Now, again, you speak about dementia, and there's been a lot of layering. And I think what happens with the layering of life and memory is that it's now layered with a lot of trauma and distress, grief, pain, anxiety. And we find that normally with old people, there's more dementia when people actually want to forget big traumas in their life. They've lost someone close to them, children, grandchildren, spouses. And I normally found this becomes a very common kind of disease or dis-ease when people have gone through a traumatic a loss or grief. And what they're doing is that at a subconscious level, because they're trying to protect it, they're almost trying to forget the core essence of their grief, which is probably a memory of the person or whoever existed in their world. And instead of going the scientific medicinal way, counseling and coaching and talking and checking and dealing with the negative, unprocessed, repressed emotions would probably take away a lot of the dementia. It's more about love than about healing. It's more about love than about transforming. It's more about love than about fixing.
All right, so now let's assume I have a whole host of bad habits that I want to get rid of. I've got this beautiful opportunity in the month of Ramadan to possibly reinvent myself. How do I apply the principles of neuroplasticity? Do I need to come to a master coach like yourself, or do I go to a healthcare professional, or is there a simple way for me just to stay at home and follow a couple of steps and together with possibly the power of positive thinking? I don't know. How do we embark on this journey, and how long will it take? Is it something really that you need your hand held through a period of time, a time and process, or is this achievable on your own?
It's a bit of a quandary because it's all of it and none of it. I think it's all totally dependent on number one, the intensity of that which you need to change. How disempowering is it? How devaluating is it? How destructive is it to your life and to the lives of others? If it's a simple thing like trying to lose some body fat in Ramadan and making sure that you don't pick up body fat in Ramadan, you could kind of just discipline yourself by awareness. And I want to use, I think, a synonymous word with neuroplasticity is awareness of culturally how we function as human beings, the nature of experience making, and how we are driven between the conscious and subconscious mind to all of our decisions, which ultimately lead to our destiny. But if it's something bigger, if it's something bolder, if you got a relationship issue, if you got a grieving issue where you can't get over a loss, especially now with COVID, we've seen a lot of that. Then obviously it's advisable to to see a life coach, to see someone, to see a friend, someone who can guide you and hold your hand and again, essentially show you love and remind you of your awareness and your potential. Health workers, I'm not very afraid because, chemicals, medicine, they give you temporary relief, but there is no permanent transformation in that. So I'm not debunking it. I mean, if I got a headache, I'm going to quite simply go and take a Panado or aspirin or Disprin. I'm not saying I'm bulletproof against that. But if I've got recurring headaches and I keep on taking Panados every other day, then I actually need to dig a little deeper and understand what's the source of my headache, what's the cause of this. And that's normally, in most cases, more than medical or physical, it's normally emotional. A lot of emotional repressions manifest in our lives in many different forms and shapes and ultimately in diseases. So I would think on the variable intensity of whatever's going on in your life and what you would like to change, you could then decide, can I do this kind of by self-talk, self-help, self-awareness, or do I need my hand held through? But it's very different. It's very diverse to very different people in different situations.
Okay, power of positive thinking. How big a role does that play in perhaps succeeding in, rewiring your thinking and your lifestyle and just the way you see the world?
It's essential. I mentioned earlier on that the concept of neuroplasticity is based on neurons we fire become neurons we wire. But I must tell you that there mustn't be a disconnect between the thinking and the feeling, because to create a rewiring in neuroplasticity, there has to be such an intense synergy between thought and emotion. So for example, if you're going through financial distress and you're thinking, I am wealthy, I am rich, I am wealthy, I am rich, and your subconscious mind goes, dude, have you looked at your bank balance? You're going to be evicted from your home, the bank's repoing your car, you haven't paid the school fees, then that's not actually going to gel too well as a positive thinking. But if you begin to feel as if, what's my potential? If you begin to ask the right questions and start believing that I might not have the money to pay the school fees right now, but I do have the potential in creating or achieving or creatively creating something to make the money, and I start using that feeling together with the positive thought of my possibilities, then that begins to synergize and crystallize more effectively into neuroplasticity. So what's really important with the positive thinking is the thoughts must be so good that they ignite the right feelings and we can synergize those. And when we got that going, we actually become a force to be reckoned with inside of us. So it's again about awareness.
Okay, how does gratitude fit into the big scheme of things here? Gratitude, possibly service to mankind as well. And I'm thinking about, and you do get these people, very especially if you're plagued with a problem, a family problem or an emotional problem, it plays on your mind 24/7. How does one overcome this? How are you able to, what is the trick to switch from that ugly picture you're seeing in your mind all the time to something beautiful, calming, and gives you a feeling of gratitude? And so then lead you to the path of neuroplasticity, rewiring to become a better person.
It almost seemed like in your time off, you might have seen a life coach. It wasn't me, though. You should have come to see me, because I think through all my coaches that I coach who are coaching and my direct coaching, the most crucial element of all transformation begins and ends with gratitude. You see, gratitude for us, for me, is the antidote for every negative emotion. Have you ever seen someone who's anxious and grateful, or fearful and grateful, or angry and grateful? So developing and understanding and cultivating an attitude of gratitude allows you to tap into that inner reservoir and inner potential and resource of who we actually are. And again, I love the Quranic verse in Surah Ibrahim where Allah says, La in shakartum la azidannakum. That if you are grateful for what we have given you, we shall give you even more. And very often with clients, they are so disdained by what they're not achieving. And all we do is we bring their attention and focus to be grateful for what they do have and where they are at the moment, whatever faculties that are functioning in their lives. And it's incredible that the moment you tap into that kind of resource and become grateful for it, then everything else begins to expand in that kind of vein, in that kind of direction. So for neuroplasticity, if you wanted a motor vehicle with the nicest engine and the nicest kind of shape with the best leather interior, gratitude would be the key to start that motor and start that car. And absolutely, yes.
I'm going to wrap up by making the statement, and I will have you respond to it as well. How will I know that I am beginning to rewire in the right direction as far as neuroplasticity is concerned, because there's no blood test or any test to be taken to check whether you're on the right path. And also, I should imagine, alhamdulillah, we as Muslims are truly blessed. We get given the month of Ramadan, we get the opportunity during Bakri Eid to show our gratitude. One of the principles of Islam is obviously your zakat. You paying it forward. You tithing. Call it what you like. Just that action alone is an action of gratitude, is it not? When we give lillah, sadaqah, all of that, and then qurbani time as well, isn't that the greatest act of gratitude? So for us Muslims, it can't be difficult to rewire.
Absolutely. Now, you've mentioned acts of gratitude, and they are great acts, but not the greatest act. I tell you why. We're focusing that gratitude on being able to give. But when you can begin to appreciate who you are as a human being, the faculties that Allah has blessed you with, that you are housing the most sophisticated human piece of technology known to mankind in this being, this machine, this engine room that is beyond human capacity and beyond technology and beyond advancement. And if you could just for a moment glimpse into that, it begins to ripple through you, and you begin we have 50 trillion cells, Julie, that when you look in the mirror in the morning, you're not looking at a single entity. You're looking at probably 50 trillion cells that are working in harmony and in cohesion together through quantum intelligence, only through the blessings and wisdom and infinite source of our Allah. And once we get to understand that, I mean, gratitude is cultivated right there. Someone asked me, Coach, how do I consistently live in the state of gratitude? And I laughed and said, well, you shouldn't actually worry about being living in a state of gratitude. What I do is I live with bewilderment in my beingness, in my state of who I am. And when I'm bewildered, I think a knock-on dovetail emotion to bewilderment is gratitude, because then you're really grateful. And a knock-on kind of dovetail emotion to gratitude is connection and surrender to source. So this cohesiveness of bewilderment to gratitude to connection is so innate, and it doesn't need to be a huge sacrifice. It doesn't need to be a qurban. It doesn't need to be a lillah or sadaqah. The first most important lillah and sadaqah is just to be grateful for your beingness. On your second question, or first question, how do I know it's changed? We have a common saying in our coaching world that when we coach and when we become aware, nothing changes, but everything's different. So I like to quote Francis of Assisi, who said, "Dear Lord, give me not the gift of seeing a new world, but give me the gift of seeing the same world through a brand new set of eyes." And I think that's when things have changed.
Absolutely.
When I can see the same drama, the same family, the same home, the same car, the same material, the same physical, the same spiritual, just through an elevated sense of gratitude, it begins to shift everything. And that is when you know it's neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is not this expanded scientific term. It's just seeing the world, seeing the same thing differently, from a different lens.
And with gratitude, obviously. And that's where we're going to have to leave it. It's been absolutely wonderful talking with you this morning. Hope we can hook up again. Inshallah. Keep us in your du'as and have a wonderful Ramadan.
And the pleasure and honor is all mine. Wa alaikum salam. And Ramadan Kareem to each and everyone. Everyone observing it. Thank you so much. Salam.
Ameen. That was Super Coach Khalid Jassat talking to us about neuroplasticity and the role Ramadan plays in this aspect. And gosh, it really gives you food for thought, does it not? I mean, it really makes you start thinking the status quo. It makes you start questioning where you're at, why you're there, what difference are you making? Are you making a difference? Are you in gratitude? Are you paying it forward? Is it making a difference in your life? So I think those are all the questions one needs to ask, and one needs to start actioning on them. Still to come, we'll be talking with Dr. Neil Butko about COVID-19, the vaccination, the pushback, and obviously also the conspiracy theories around the vaccines. Time for an ad break. When we get back, we'll be joined by Dr. Neil Butko.